Good morning. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to yet another edition of the BW Education Dialogue. Today is 5th September. It's a special day. It's a Teachers' Day. So let me bring in two eminent educationists, two academicians and teachers to this conversation. Let me welcome Dr. Anup Singh, who's the Director General of the Nirma University. Welcome, Dr. Singh. Good morning and happy Teachers' Day. Dr. Anup Singh did teach me at the Management Development Institute in 94 and 95 when I was studying at MDI. So he has been my teacher. Let me also welcome Dr. Rajan Saxena, who's been a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Narsee Monjee Institute of Management Studies. He had a long stint of 10 years at NMIMS. And I worked with some of his students, collaborated with some of his students. And while he's never taught me directly, I've learned a lot from him. So let me welcome Dr. Anup Singh and Dr. Rajan Saxena to this conversation. This conversation is also being recorded so that it can be put on the YouTube channel. It'll go on the BW Education page and the BW Business World page. Let me start with Dr. Singh. Dr. Singh, we celebrate Teachers' Day once a year. What does Teachers' Day mean to somebody like you?
Well, Teachers' Day is very important for me because whatever I am today, I am because of my teachers. And education has to be faculty-centered. Nowadays, we have this phrase learner-centered. That is fine. But unless education is faculty-centered, there is no way that it can be learner-centered. And therefore, teacher is the center of the whole education process. And I am so glad that we have decided to celebrate this day as a memory of Dr. Radhakrishnan. For a good teacher, see, things are very important. And everybody knows about first two things and nobody knows about the third thing. The first thing is that whatever we are teaching should be relevant to the students. And second thing is the way we are delivering, it should be rigorous. So everybody knows about relevance and rigor, but many people ignore the relationship. Teaching is a human process, and teacher and students are part of a social group. And unless we emphasize the relationship, the teaching is not going to be a life transformational experience. So all teachers need to focus on relationship besides relevance and rigor. So that is something which we should keep remembering on the Teachers' Day.
Thank you so much. For most of our viewers and readers, 5th September is celebrated as Teachers' Day in memory of the former President Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. He was a role model for a lot of Indians and will continue to be an inspiration to all of us. Dr. Saxena, in your long career of more than 5 decades, what has being a teacher meant to you? And what is the relevance of the Teachers' Day to someone like you, Dr. Saxena?
Thank you very much, Anurag. Let me just first of all correct that I was not the Pro-Vice Chancellor, but the Vice Chancellor of the university. Okay. That's a small little correction, but nonetheless. Having said that, well, today is certainly a day when we all remember India's philosopher, scholar, President, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, whose memory we all celebrate the Teachers' Day. It's a day when we all pay compliments. It's a day when we pay our regards to our teachers. One day where teacher is really celebrated in this country, the contribution that the teacher makes to the nation building process. To me, the teacher has always symbolized as one with a much bigger role than just simply teaching. It is really, I would say, the development of a human being. It is the development of the society. It is, truly speaking, a good teacher who makes good society, who really makes a responsible society. It's a society of individuals who are able to critically think, who are innovators, who are responsible citizens, and at the same time, they're ethical individuals. And I think it is we, as teachers, who provide those kinds of value systems. And to me, every day, September 5 that comes, it means that as a teacher, I have that kind of responsibility. And I keep asking myself a question: have I really been able to do it? And the best kind of a reward for any teacher is the students. So if the students have succeeded, the teacher has succeeded. But that is not necessarily true if the students have not necessarily succeeded. So I would, on this day, pay my regards to all my teachers. And at the same time, I would extend my greetings to the entire teaching fraternity, the fraternity to which both Anup and I belong to.
Thank you for so beautifully explaining what teachers mean to the society, to the country, and to the community. Let me ask you, we are speaking after 8 weeks of the new education policy being kind of envisioned, being launched. Do you think the new education policy makes teachers, of course it has students at the heart, as Dr. Anup Singh talked and you talked about it, but does it make teachers the center of the learning ecosystem? Does it give its due to the teachers?
I think it would be wrong to say that it is only the teacher who's there at the center of the national education policy. I think it is both the teacher and the student who are today at the center of the entire national education policy. It certainly puts a lot of responsibility on the teacher to innovate and to focus on the outcomes of the learning process itself. And I think it is perhaps the first time ever that an education policy is talking about outcomes. And we as teachers have to now focus not just merely on the inputs, but on the outcomes. That is, what is it that our graduates are going to be doing? And if we are able to define that, then it is much easier to measure it. So it's that is critical over there. The second, I think, is a big kind of a part which comes up from the national education policy from a teacher's point of view. It does realize, the policy does realize, that there is an urgent need to develop the teaching community in this country, to develop a much larger teacher base if the country has to go towards let's say, the desired GER, that is almost about 50% of the GER in another 15 years or 20 years time period. Now, you cannot achieve that kind of a GER unless in higher education, unless and until you have
Dr. Saxena, GER as envisaged in the NEP, I think has been pegged very high.
Yes.
To me, it's good to peg it high, but we have to be realistic whether we can get to those numbers soon enough. But directionally, yes, it's good to have a high GER, because we're trying to kind of jump numbers to an extent that it seems unrealistic.
Yeah, but when you have been a student of management, Anurag, and you have turned around the business world, I think you would agree with me that unless and until the goal is aspirational, it doesn't become, truly speaking, motivational. It doesn't create a motivational environment for the entire team to really deliver. Certainly, it looks impossible, but the time zone is about 20 years. I think if in 20 years time period, we are not able to achieve that, then it would be a shame. Certainly, it would require a lot bigger investment in the infrastructure. It would require a much larger teachers community. And more importantly, it would require an investment in technology. Because today, technology can help you to respond to the scale challenge, the challenge of scale. The physical campuses cannot. The physical classroom has a limitation. But it is the technology that can provide you with that kind of a mechanism by which you can really talk about a larger scale. Secondly, I think technology can also ensure there is a consistent quality input across different geographies and to different student cohorts itself. So two things to my mind, the quality consistency and the scale. That I think is critical in the technology space. I think as a teacher, I have to be now much more relevant in this kind of a changing time. The VUCA word that was talked about by the World Economic Forum almost about a decade back or 5, 7, 8 years ago is now here. We can see it. And COVID has really shown that. And if we are not able to really quickly adapt to the changing world, we as teachers would become outdated. And if we become outdated, our students become outdated. That's the connection that I would like to build it up in the national education policy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saxena. Dr. Anup Singh, the same question to you. Does NEP improve the lot of teachers? And if yes, how?
Well, we can divide the teachers into two categories, school education teachers and higher education teachers. I would first talk about the school education teachers. The new education policy emphasizes that we do away with low quality B.Ed and M.Ed schools, right? In fact, the cheapest and the most useless degree in this country has been B.Ed. You know, somebody is teaching somewhere, applies somewhere, goes there for 2 weeks and gets a B.Ed degree. So we have made a mockery of a B.Ed degree. Now the new education policy is very clear that we need to focus more on B.Ed and M.Ed degree, and school teachers have to be trained much better. So that is one significant milestone. The second milestone is that after the teachers are inducted in the school, they also need to undergo professional training from time to time. So if you want to understand the new education policy, we have to read the policy document as well as the report which the commission has submitted. So broad recommendations are in the project report, and over there they say that look, if school education is to be transformed, teacher education has to be transformed. So far higher education is concerned, 4 years ago our Prime Minister gave a slogan, Achhe Shikshak, Achhi Shiksha. So he was very, very clear that unless we have good teachers, there is no way that we can have a good education. And UGC has established one inter-university center for teacher education at BHU. The body, and then each university is going to have a teaching learning center. So there is a blueprint for that, and it needs to be implemented. Another thing that I would like to add, that policies and recommendations don't make any change. The real change has to come from university, and they need to spend at least 2% of their budget on faculty development. If you look into IITs and IIMs, which are good institutions, they are good because they do two things. One is that they invest in their teachers' development, and they give some free time to teachers to do research and to do some extra things. Somehow that has not been happening in many institutions. So if you want teachers to grow, we need to invest more in them, and I gave you a figure that at least 2% should be invested in them. And we also need to give them some more time, because if they don't have time, they can't do research, they can't take care of their students. I talked about relationship, and some of the teachers are not able to develop relationship with their students because they don't have time for it. They are just running from class to class. So we need to also look into that. And it will take a time, it is not going to change overnight. And as Dr. Saxena was telling, that we have a horizon of 2 decades, and we must do that, because if we don't do that, in spite of all the good intentions of new education policy, we won't be able to establish good education. The first priority has to be the teacher.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. I once remarked 5 years back, and you talked about the BA degree. I think maybe 6-7 years back, I said, sometimes at the entry level, I was on a TV debate, and to be dramatic, I said, and it's true, by the way, factually, that sometimes at the entry level, our drivers and cooks get more money than the teachers. And that's, that if you cannot look after your teachers, then you cannot build what you want to build. Because teachers are the kind of role models for students early on. So if the teachers are not looked after, how will you create role models that students can look up to? And I totally agree. I keep saying, Dr. Anup Singh, that whatever little I have achieved in life is because of fantastic teachers we had in India and throughout my career, whether it was in my engineering school or was it in my convent school or 11th and 12th that I did from a college. And we do remember and discuss our teachers and value them today much more than we ever did. Now, I want to come back to you, Dr. Anup Singh, to ask you a question. Technology, Dr. Saxena also alluded to. You also briefly talked about technology. Now, we are saying the university of the future may be on a cloud. Maybe 10 years, 15 years, 5 years. And COVID has shown us that never say never. Anything is possible. So, tell us, as the role of technology goes up, as the campuses shift online, not today fully, someday, I think in the near foreseeable future, it'll be a hybrid learning. You can never take the charm of a student talking face to face with his or her teacher, having a cup of tea and being on the campus. But tell us, does technology enhance the role of a teacher, or the technology in some way minimizes the role of a teacher?
Well, we are going to have two kind of education prevailing together. One is in-person education and another is online education. So today our GR is around 24-25%. Out of that, at least 4-5% is already distance education and online. So the real in-person education is around 20%. Out of that, 2% is quality education, and I would say that another 8% is average education, and 10% is bad education. So when we are talking about 50% GER, what would happen that this 2% would become probably 3%, and most of the people, around 25% would be getting average education, and the rest would be below par education. So that is going to be the scenario. Education is highly pyramidal, right? There is pyramid, and we have to realize that everybody cannot get world-class education. Now, the problem with online education is that online teachers are treated worse than in-person teachers. And that has been proven in the United States, right? And online education is more suitable for those people who are in rural areas, who are in very small cities, who are 30 plus, right? So we are not talking about giving, online education to those people who are in big cities, who are, around, 20 to 25. We are talking about those people who are 30 plus, who would like to upgrade their skills, and online education has to be much more relevant. So we need three things for online education. The first thing is that we need to have a nationwide network, which is still not there. So unless we have a very quality nationwide network, there is no way that we can achieve our objective. That is the first thing. The second thing is that online education has to be much more vocational in nature. It has to be much more relevant, because those people who are older, they are going to go for online education, and they would not focus just on perspective, they would focus on practice, right? So the nature of online education has to be very different. Now, coming to quality, unless we go for hybrid model, quality would not come. If any education is 100% online, then it would remain low quality education. But if you go for a model which is 80% online and 20% in person, then probably we can ensure quality. And lastly, I have taught in person, I have taught online, and I find that the way of teaching is very, very different in these two modes. So when we started online teaching at Nirma, we realized that we are not trained for that. It's a very different kettle of fish, and therefore we ensured that every teacher goes through a training program of 2 weeks just to understand the nuances of online learning. So unless we have a hybrid model, and unless teachers are very well trained for online learning and they are treated well, they are paid well, I don't think that we can have quality online education.
Thank you so much. Dr. Saxena, your views on the same issue. Technology, a boon for teachers or a bane for teachers?
Well, Anurag, I believe that teacher cannot be replaced. He cannot be replaced. Teacher cannot be replaced. Teacher is an essential part of the education process. Even when we are talking about technology, at the end of the day, it is the teacher, even in that kind of a space itself. It is what kind of a course module a teacher designs, how the whole module gets designed, that is going to be critical. And at the same time, how it is being delivered, that is going to be critical. So there could be multiple ways. To me, online education is here to stay. It is not something which is a passing phase. I also believe that in the times to come, if we are talking about the GER of 50% in higher education, then it is the technology only that will really help us take it forward. And therefore, technology will be a very important component of that. The digital university is going to be a reality. It is, as you very rightly said, the university in the cloud is going to be the reality. Possibly in another about 2 to 3 years time period, that's going to be the reality. That's where it is. We are already seeing it. For example, I'll just share this with you. We have several MOOC courses that have come up from various universities, designed by some of the best known kind of teachers, and at the same time also being delivered, by some of the very well-known experts there itself. Coursera is an example of that. edX is another example of that, where the courses are there. Now, from a training point of view, this is perhaps a very good. But even from an education point of view, there are universities, there are institutions like NMIMS. What we did was to really, and we entered into a tie-up with Coursera, and we brought in certain courses from Coursera in our engineering program. And we said, particularly in the area of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data sciences, and so on those areas where there is a difficulty of getting a good teacher today in this country. And not only in this country, but perhaps in the world itself, because the whole science is really getting involved. And therefore, from that point of view, what we said was that those students who would really take these courses, in addition to what they are really doing, is going to get the BTech honors kind of a degree. In addition to that, the faculty in the institution design the projects around those kinds of courses. So the faculty also attended that kind of a course and developed those projects and assignments and those kinds of things. So the model that, to my mind, which is really emerging, is that some courses will really shift towards an online mode, particularly those that are pub-native. But the ones which require a whole lot of behavioral experiments, the ones that would require a whole lot of work within the group itself, and at the same time would require experimentation and lab work, etc. They are the ones that are going to be gaps. At the same time, courses which are likely to be more modeling kind of courses could be both in a online and also in a hybrid mode. To me, the teacher would still be there as a center part, right in the center. It cannot be, technology cannot replace the center. It cannot replace the teacher. It's the access. Teacher is an axis around which everything is really revolving. Whether this is the, I would say, the online courses, or it is the actual face-to-face kind of courses, or it is the entire education process that we are talking about, the learning process that we are talking about. Right in the center is really the teacher. So you cannot remove this axis.
Thank you so much. You are saying even when technology comes, the value of a teacher will only enhance. Dr. Anup Singh also said that, both have to be seen in a different way. Online teaching still has the teacher at the center, but we have to up the quality of teachers in online. It cannot be teacher seen as a poor cousin to classroom teaching, traditional classroom teaching.
Just one minute, Anup. And that is where I think today, as Dr. Anup Singh also said, that is where the training of the teachers is really required. And today there are fortunately many kind of initiatives that have already started in the area of training the teachers in the digital technology. Quickly started off with that, which was the Future X program. Today, one of the major initiatives is getting off to a start at a national level, the Open Ed Work, where one of the kind of thing is the teacher development in a digital mode itself, or the digital technology itself. The Open Ed Work has already finished one training program for the school teachers, and the next ones are really lined up. So what I'm really trying to say, teacher development is the need of the hour. Not only from a technology point of view, even from the point of view of creating an interdisciplinarity in the course design itself, which is what the new education policy is talking about.
Thank you, Dr. Saxena. You are a mind reader. I was going to ask you, how do teachers retool themselves, reorient themselves, kind of upgrade themselves to be able to kind of be relevant in the new environment? You already answered that. Let me take that to Dr. Anup Singh. Dr. Singh, teachers also have to kind of upgrade themselves. It's like, they have to stay ahead of the learning game to be able to provide that learning. Do you see teachers today doing that? If yes, how?
Well, every profession requires development, and so does teaching. And the development requirements of teachers would differ from their career phases, one from another. For example, when there is a new teacher, then we need to have induction faculty development program for 1 month to 3 months so that he understands what education is all about. If we are insisting for a 2-year B.Ed for school education teachers, we should insist for at least a 2 months training program for college and university teachers. What I find that mentoring is more important than training. Training we have used and we didn't find much benefit from training, right? People go to
mentoring is more important than training.
Yes, yes. So these young teachers should also be mentored by senior teachers, and when mentoring is taking place, then they have role models and they know the whole process of development. So they understand that their potential is unfolding. So this is for new teachers. Then we have got middle level teachers, and over there our experience is that we should send them to the real world, right? Most of the time, as I shared with you, the teaching load is so much that teachers are confined to the four walls of their colleges and university, and they are not in touch with the real world. So, there has to be internship for teachers. We are insisting in new education policy for various internship for students. And if there is no internship for teachers, then how teacher is going to develop, right? So in IIT and IIMs, they have training programs, they have consulting programs, they have other interventions through which, their teachers are able to go to industries. But what we do, that we send at least, our teachers to research organizations and industry for 2 to 4 weeks. So that is for middle level teachers. And for top level teachers, it's very important that they focus on the philosophy of education. See, education is not just employability. Education is not just entrepreneurship. Of course, we need to have more employed people. We need to have more entrepreneurs. But education is also enlightenment. Education is also empowerment. Education is also transformation, right? And there are different approaches to education, and there are deep philosophies behind them. So we need to develop new philosophies. We need to have senior teachers who are working on the philosophies of education, who are working on new pedagogies, who are working on new technologies. And in the process, they are also developing, just, quick thing, that, there are three kinds of scholarships, right? One is teaching scholarship, one is research scholarship, and the third is, educational scholarship, which we have been ignoring. So the top teachers, professors, they need to focus on education scholarship, what education is, what pedagogy is, what technologies are, and how we are going to enhance them. So different teachers in different age groups would require different interventions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love 3 sentences. One, you said education is not just education, it's enlightenment. Second, you talked about how teachers need to upgrade themselves by going beyond the 4 walls of their educational institution, which means they're interacting with the industry. You talked about the multidisciplinary approach that needs to come in the new education policy. So adding on more skills to their core, area of expertise. I think if teachers are able to do this and also adopt to technology while retaining the good skills of pre-COVID era, I think Indian teaching ecosystem will reach its potential. And at the end of the day, teacher he or she has to upgrade himself every, dare I say, 6 months. It would be 2 years, 3 years. But the way the technology is galloping, as you know, Dr. Singh and Dr. Saxena, in 2034, it is predicted that singularity will happen. And it may well happen before that, where human beings and machines will be able to perform certain functions. Similarly, machines will be able to do that. Of course, it takes wisdom of a human being to figure out what to do when. Technology can help in making a bullet and making a medicine, but only a human being's wisdom can tell us when to use a gun and when to use a medicine. I think that is not going away. I want to ask you, if you had to point out, let me start with Dr. Singh, 3 things every teacher can do to be more relevant. You, in some way, alluded to it in past questions. But what are the 3 specific things that a teacher should do from here on to be more relevant, to be more of a teacher post 2020?
Well, 3 things I would say that a teacher needs to focus on 3 C's, right? The first C is content. The content is exploding, right? And the teachers needs to know what is happening, and he needs to curate the relevant information and knowledge for his students So he has to be a content master, right? The second is communication, because I have seen that there are teachers who know a lot, but when it comes to communication, they are not able to communicate that to the students. So they have to go to the level of students, right? And take them to their level. So communication becomes very, very important. And last C is probably the most important: care. They need to take care of their students. They need to believe in Indian system. See, one beautiful thing about Indian system is that we believe in family, right? And the college or university or the school has to be a family. So when we treat our students as family members, then we care, right? So we should not forget this Indian value of family, and students should be treated as family members. And when we care for them, then rewards are tremendous. So 3 C's: content, communication, and care.
Beautiful. Dr. Saxena?
Yeah. Anurag, to me, there are three things that to me are: one is a continuous updation of knowledge. And today, the pace at which the knowledge is changed is evolving. Today, the pace at which the data and information is really coming to us is phenomenal. And we are all aware of the fact that the knowledge has a very limited shelf life now. Now, as a teacher, the most important thing is that we need to be really relevant. And the first thing is really the subject area that I'm in. So I have to continuously keep updating myself on that particular subject area. But in addition to the subject area, are also the other kind of an area that are influencing the decision making in my own subject area, particularly the application of my own subject area. Like for example, technology, how it is, what are the changes that are really happening around. Artificial intelligence, for example, how it is affecting. I come from the marketing area, as you are aware. How marketing area is really getting, what is it that I can really pick up from the artificial intelligence in the marketing area? How
data from the data sciences.
Yeah, from data sciences and other areas. Now this is influencing the whole organizational processes and also the market processes. Look at it from the point of view of, let's say, some of the other aspects of living the life, how to live the life. It is we, the teachers, who can really develop the students in that area. And therefore, I need to really acquire my own knowledge. I need to read myself. I need to go back and focus more and more on my own self-reading. That is the first thing. Second is very clearly, it is the comfort with technology. Today, you cannot sort of wish away technology. Technology is right in the center itself. So it is a great mediator itself. It's a mediating effect. The technology has a mediating effect. And therefore, I need to really understand how does this mediating effect can really work. How this whole process is really working. So therefore, my adaptation, my let us say, the ability to work with the technology is critical. And the third is the development of the student. And I believe that there are 3 areas or 4 areas where we need to focus on extensively. One is consistently in the area of the cognitive skills. It is we, the teachers, who can really develop that kind of a cognitive skills. At the same time, we also need to develop what we call it as the executional skills, the doing skills. Now, how does one really do that? With the projects, going over to the corporate, picking up some of the live kind of experiments, or doing a whole lot of an experimental research. That is something which is going to be there. And the third is really where we talk about the interpersonal skills part of it. So these are the 3. And the fourth is very clearly, it is the innovation, and the fifth is the ethical part. This, unless and until we really focus on that, we will be really failing in our duties.
Thank you so much. Dr. Singh and Dr. Saxena, do you think, apart from the role the teacher does in terms of imparting education, being a nurturer, being a father figure or a mother figure after the parents, do you think the teacher can also be a mentor? Because mentor is a more, teacher-student is a little more formal relationship, whereas mentor-mentee is more informal and is about the holistic development and progress of the subject. I'm not calling him or the student. So tell us, do you think today's teachers can be tomorrow's mentors?
Well, Anurag, you hit the nail on the head, right? This mentorship is very, very important. In one Australian tribe, once you are 18, right, you are asked to go out of the tribe for 6 months, and you can contact only one person who is your mentor, right? And you have to survive without your society for 6 months, and only person who is available to you is your mentor, right? So once you are out of your family and you are in a college, right? So you have one person who can be your mentor, and this is how the personality and potential of the student unfolds. However, the tragedy is that teachers are not trained for mentorship. Today, in the corporate world, we are talking about coaching, we are talking about mentorship. So the corporate world has understood the importance of coaching and mentorship. Unfortunately, mentorship, which is more important in the educational world, we have not understood it, and it is need of the hour that we start focusing more and more on mentorship. Though on paper, in many universities, we have a mentoring scheme, but people are not trained for mentorship. People are not given time. See, we have got Google. How did Google take place? Google did not take place in Silicon Valley. Google did take place in Stanford University, and there were mentors, right? So we need to have different kind of mentorship, technical mentorship, personal mentorship, leadership mentorship. So different students may have different kind of requirement. So we just can't have one leadership mentor. We also need to have a technology mentor. We need to have some other kind of mentor. So this is the need of our, and though it is not fully covered in the new education policy, but in terms of implementation, teachers need to be trained in mentorship, and they should be allotted certain mentees, and they should be given time, and it should also be rigorously monitored, right? That what is happening over there. So it is very, very important point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. Dr. Saxena, your inputs.
Well, I completely agree with you that it's the mentoring process that is far more important. It's then simply the teaching process. Mentoring is really where you are focusing on the development of the individual, and not just merely one aspect of the development, but you are really bringing the potential, you are developing the entire potential of the individual. And the way that one does really makes that individual flower into a great kind of a individual itself. Unfortunately, there's no formal training program today in the academic world on mentoring. But I think the mentoring, by and large, comes to us very, very, very naturally itself. I remember, my own teachers who really mentored me, but they mentored me in different ways. For example, I remember a teacher of mine who taught me how to even use a fork and a knife when I was a college student in Delhi University. And both of us, we went over to the coffee house in Delhi University, and he ordered some snacks for both of us and some coffee, etc. And as I picked up the fork and knife, the food just simply jumped off my table, and I did not know. That's where he started teaching me on how to really use even the fork and the knife. The finer aspects of life, the appreciation of life, is really something that the mentor really provides that. So mentoring is all focused on development, and I do believe that one has to really work towards that. Ultimately, all the academic process is all about development. It is, and if the development has to get completed, if the process has to get completed, it cannot be minus the mentoring process. And therefore, the teacher has to become a mentor. And therefore, my kind of an advice to the institutions would be to really create a good mentoring program, even for the teachers themselves, so that they also get mentored by the senior teachers. And not only by the senior teachers, but they also get mentored by many, many others outside the education system also. It is not
from domain experts, from leaders in other areas.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right that, I would say mentoring is a one-to-one process, whereas teaching is a one-to-many process. Mentoring is about holistic development. Unfortunately, academics and teaching becomes about academic excellence. It tends to be more, and it is more in some cases. And third, as you rightly said, the mentors themselves need to learn from domain experts, bring in domain experts for the development of the mentee. I want to ask you my last question. My last question is, the last 6 months have been very troublesome for a lot of people, both on the lives front and the livelihood front. You talked of the word VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Possibly it was invented for the last 6 months. And I hope it's the last 6 months and not more months ahead of us. The question I'm asking you is, what is your message of hope for people who are anxious, who are dealing with anxiety, who are dealing with uncertainty, who had loss of income, so on and so forth? So I would like to get a message of hope from both of you for people who will read your interview or watch your interview so that they can deal with what's happening around us currently. Dr. Singh, first you. And then
Anurag, I am reminded of a story. A young man was going to the city from his village, and he didn't have much money, and his mother was also very poor. So she gave him a slip and said that, look, this is very important. When you are very, very troubled, only then you open it, otherwise you don't open it. He went to the city and he had difficult times, and 3 months, 4 months passed. And then he got probably the worst time of his life. And he said, this is the time to open the slip. And he opened the slip, and mother had written, it will also pass. So my message to my colleagues is that it will pass. It is not
going to pass.
It will, yeah, right. So and we have a better future. We have hope, and that is the beauty of humanity. We have faced so many pandemics in the past, and we have overcome them, and this will also pass.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saxena.
Well, I would start from where it was just left, that this too shall pass. And this is something which is such a common kind of a statement that we keep hearing it from time to time. It's one of those best known kind of a statement that we can all live with. But having said that, the reality is also over here that we all need to be, that we all need to confront. The reality is that it is going to take a little longer than one would have really imagined in the initial stages. It isn't just a few months, possibly it could take a few years before the entire world comes out of it. But having said that, I think this is a time when we all need to, it is testing our resilience. It is testing our resilience. And therefore, I think it is important for each one of us to really focus more on the holistic aspect, more towards looking at more positive news and more positive developments that are taking place around us. Unfortunately, there is so much of a negativity in the whole environment And every time the focus is on the number of cases of that are there. But we are not talking about the positivity rate. In fact, what should be much and more highlighted is that how the positivity rating is really getting, is changing over a period of time. That is important. How the recovery rate is really improving significantly. That is going to be far more important. I think it's a focus that is really critical. Having said that, the second big thing is it's a time for each one of us to prepare for the post-COVID world. And there are three things that we need to be focusing on. One is, important thing is to acquire the skill that I don't have today, but which are going to be required tomorrow in the new world itself. So focus on the skills, the future skills that are really going to be determining my future and also that of because it is linked to what is really going to be the firm futures itself and what the economic world is really going to be. So the skills, that is important. Second is, even if I have the skills today which are relevant, it is important for me to re-skill myself because there is so much of development that is really happening around in my own system. For example, even in teaching methodology, as an example, as a teacher, I need to I may be a good teacher, but then there's so much happening in the teaching methodology, I need to reskill myself on that. And the third, which is important, is upgrade my skill. So wherever it is required, I need to continuously upgrade my skill. So I would say the world is going to be much better future is there. Maybe it has little time, maybe the economy will pick up after about 1 year, 2 years time period. Maybe the kind of growth that we have seen in our country or in the world would possibly may not happen in the near future, maybe in another 3-4 years, but certainly turnaround will be happening, and we have to be prepared for that period. So 3 years from today or 2 years from today, let us prepare for that and skill ourselves. And that, I think, is an important part. Particularly when we talk about entrepreneurship, and that is something that we need to start looking at. Today is the best time for entrepreneurship because some of the best mind, some of the most innovative solutions today can come out from the mind itself, from individuals. The adversity always creates that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Singh and Dr. Saxena, for talking to BW Education, BW Business World. Your message to teachers and to the society is very rooted in your own experiences over the years and how you as leaders of institutions have worked with other teachers, you work with students, and dare I say you should calculate the ROI in the progress of your students. That's the beauty about teachers. They calculate their ROI. And I see my parents talking about, oh, my student is doing that well. Oh, he's now there. So I've listened to that throughout my life. So I just seek your blessings. You both have been like father figures to me. Dr. Anup Singh, of course, for the last 26 years. I met him 26 years back. He was our, a very celebrative faculty. Also very, very loved by students. Also feared for not completing assignments on time, but that was a different aspect. But we are grateful to you for your time. And dare I say that going back to the Indian tradition of Guru Dakshina, I would only say that I express my deepest gratitude to both of you and to all the teachers that have really taught me and my friends and my colleagues and helped them become the better versions of themselves. We still have a long way to go, but we'll continue to seek your guidance and your blessings as we move forward. Thank you so much. We wish you a great day ahead and a great year. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.